Round 9 of the World Championship, Germany at the end of July. Hockenheim the venue, picturesque, set in the Rhine Valley close to Heidelberg, but a circuit with 2 long high-speed straights that never should be underestimated. 4¼ miles round, a circuit where power is paramount. It was at Hockenheim that Satoru Nakajima, the popular Japanese driver, announced his intention to retire at the end of the season. He'd first appeared in Formula One with Lotus, then joined Tyrrell. By contrast, another newcomer from Formula 3000, Michael Bartels, was chosen to stand in for Johnny Herbert at Lotus. Herbert had previously been contracted to race in Japan. Into the second half of the season, and out of pre-qualifying, Dallara, Leto having secured 4 points, Pirro 1. Modena, after Larini's 7th in Phoenix, also missed the early Friday morning. No need for an early alarm call either for Jordan. They had 10 points, courtesy of De Cesaris and Gasher. Back into pre-qualifying went Brabham, but that was nothing new for the experienced Martin Brundle.
Well, we have to get up earlier on a Friday morning, of course. Pre-qualifying is a bit of a lottery. Here at Hockenheim it went very easily for us, and I was easily the fastest. And in fact, because we had no major problems, it gave us more track time, so it worked out quite well for us.
AGS also slipped into pre-qualifying, while Batza failed to make qualifying proper, though his teammate Tarquini did. Footwork also having to pre-qualify. Alex Caffey returned unsuccessfully, but Alboreto won through. Friday practice, Morbidelli's Minardi and the Berger McLaren. Put it to music, it's an Olympic sport. More seriously, in Saturday practice, Eric Comas, the Frenchman, in his debut season with Ligier, was trying too hard and came to grief at the Ost curve, fortunately without injury. But it was an accident that provoked protests at the construction of the chicanes in use on the Hockenheim circuit.
I don't know what happened exactly. I was flat on 6 just before the second chicane here on Hockenheim. And just before about 50 meters before I brake, the wheel moves a lot and the car go on just a little on the left, and then I spun and I crashed. But I don't know exactly why.
Airlifted to hospital for a precautionary checkup, Eric Comas was soon back at the track side, recounting his tale in the paddock, pronounced fit to race. On the circuit, Gerhard Berger, perennially unlucky it seems, in the McLaren number 2. Mauricio Gugelmin, a season which was really below average in the Leighton house. Pierluigi Martinez Minardi in Revolution. Williams, in the form of Nigel Mansell, had claimed provisional pole position in Friday qualifying. On the Saturday, an intense battle for 3rd place between the 2 top number 2 drivers, Riccardo Patrese and Gerhard Berger. Patrese ahead first of all, Berger quicker by the end of the session. The number 1 McLaren of Ayrton Senna, he improved his time in 2nd position, but he was unable to match Mansell. Senna's pit boards showing P2, a rare sight indeed, but it stayed that way. 1:37.274 was 0.2 of a second slower than his great rival. Mansell, on his last flying lap, held up by Eric Comas, the Frenchman, of course, receiving the customary friendly greeting in these circumstances. The improving form of Mansell and Patrese concerned the McLaren team, and Senna in particular.
We are waiting for new things soon, and we have to give time, but I think for the difference we are looking for to catch the Williams, we need a lot more than we are going to have soon, and we need it fast, of course, because the championship is still open for me, and with the performance that the Williams Renault have got right now, we just cannot compete with them. And if we want to compete in the championship, we need those improvements very soon.
A perfect start for Mansell, who fishtailed to his right to keep a potential Senna challenge out, and still had time to regain the ideal line for the first right-hander. But it was Berger who slotted into second place from Senna, Prost and Alesi. Behind, Blundell and Larini spun in the traffic. Blundell carried on, but Larini and his Lamborghini were out for the day. Meanwhile, Mansell was moving away with a huge lead at the first chicane from the McLarens. Patrese was already splitting the Ferraris after another slow start, and he was winding in Prost. Watch them use the curves at the chicanes. Gerhard Berger was the first to stop for tyres, and it was a bad one. An oil fire at the back and a slow front right, and this stop dropped him from second place to 10th. This is Senna lapping Capelli on his way to the pits. And in fact, second man Senna and third man Prost came in at the same time. Both crews worked feverishly, and the two of them carried on their race down the pit lane. Now it was Mansell's turn. It was a good stop. This time for the Williams team, everything went according to plan. When Nigel rejoined, he came out just behind Jean Alesi in the number 28 Ferrari. And Alesi was on the harder Goodyear B compound tyres, trying to go through without a stop. Effortlessly, Nigel got the lead back. There was nothing Alesi could do about it, but still his tyre strategy had got him ahead of his teammate Alain Prost. And Prost was in the middle of a huge battle for third with Senna and Patrese. It was Patrese round the outside into the chicane. But now the Italian had Ayrton Senna to cope with. And into the stadium, he muscled past him into third place. 13 laps later, a slingshot past Alesi put Patrese second, braking really late for the chicane. And now we had Senna versus Prost for fourth place. Today the Ferrari was faster than the McLaren, but Senna kept the door firmly shut and the frustrated Prost was forced off at the second chicane. Then, trying to rejoin, he stalled the engine. But as Nigel Mansell went on his winning way, the drama wasn't over yet. Senna, in fourth place, felt his car falter. For the second race running, he pulled off, out of fuel. Wasn't it Ron Dennis who said in motor racing you shouldn't make the same mistake twice? So Nigel Mansell took the checkered flag for the third time on the trot. Another fine Williams 1-2.
Just 8 points separated Senna and Mansell after Hockenheim. There were useful points there too for Gachot and De Cesaris, and for Berger and Alesi. But Mansell and Senna was the battle that everybody concentrated on.
It was a tough race for many reasons. One, because the engine is 65% flat out, you have to be very careful with that. And then also the tyres. I think I've listed one of my sets of tyres, and I think Ricardo and I both had the similar problem with a very long brake pedal. It was quite difficult.
Still obvious animosity between Prost and Senna. It dated back further than this one race, indeed to the championship battles between the two in 1989 and 1990.
I can't win the championship, but if I find him again the same way, if he's correct the same way, I push him out. That's for sure, because I can't also accept that the FISA, I mean, they put $10,000 fine to Gugelmin or Suzuki, Manico and Silverstone, and they never do anything for top drivers. And if you have a rule, it must be the same for everybody.
I think everyone knows Prost by now. He is always complaining either by the car or the tires or the team or the mechanics or the fuel or the other drivers or the circuit. It's always somebody else's blame. It's never his fault. I think I haven't seen television, but it should be on television. It's clearly that he overshoot under braking. He risked a lot there. He could have put himself in an accident and also involved me in that. And fortunately, we didn't touch, but it almost cost me an accident there, and he almost cost him an accident too.
Mid-August, and Formula One made its annual visit to what was once the communist bloc in Eastern Europe. Hungary had hosted a Formula One Grand Prix since 1986, but nobody could remember the Danube as swollen and flooded as this. The river which divides Buda from Pest was threatening to submerge both. Nigel Mansell celebrated his birthday in style, excited about his special present.
A horse, and I'm getting that tonight.
Such a popular driver in Hungary, but what did he intend to do with the extra horsepower?
I'll ride to the circuit tomorrow.
He almost did, not quite Lester Piggott, but close. The latest development at McLaren-Honda, the semi-automatic gearbox, along the lines of those already employed at Williams and Ferrari, but not yet ready for use in a race. The black armbands, worn as a mark of respect for the late Shuichiro Honda, founder of the company that carries his name. He was 84 when he died, shortly before the Grand Prix in Hungary, a man who was capable of teaching everybody something, according to McLaren boss Ron Dennis.
I learnt from him what it's like to be able to keep your motivation until you're 80 odd years old, and fortunately I'm only 44, so I've got a while to go, but he's an inspiration to everybody in Formula One.
After a lengthy meeting, the rift appeared healed between Prost and Senna.
For the benefit of both of us and everybody, and also of the sport, we should try to find a better way of competing and working in the same environment that we do, for the benefit of everybody, and we agree that. Okay? Shake. La mano, la mano.
Alain?
FISA had ordered them to sort out their differences, and they'd done so. Prost, though, still carried a one-race suspended ban for his remarks about Senna in Germany. Friday practice, a setback for Riccardo Patrese. The Williams team unsure about their setup for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Mansell, meanwhile, appeared to be finding qualifying rather tiresome, though things were hotting up for Mark Blundell in the Brabham. Senna was quick, under 1 minute 19 for the 2.5 miles, but thought he could go even quicker. Tension down in the pits as Mansell watched the computer timing of Senna and his own teammate Patrese out on the track. Both were faster than him. Another good showing from Patrese.
I'm very happy because I had a few problems during these 2 days, engine problem, brakes problem yesterday. So I didn't have really smooth practice yesterday and today, and to be in first row I think I can be very pleased. And I have to admit that also if I had fantastic practice yesterday and today, I don't think we could match the Ayrton times because it's too far away from where we are.
After a series of bad starts from good positions, Patrese was taking no chances here, dutifully practicing his routine away from the line in preparation for the race.
If I can, I go into the lead of the first corner, trying to have a good start. That is the best thing I can do, because when I'm in front, I think I have a very good chance to stay in front. We will see.
Patrese's improvement left Mansell on the second row in only third place. And before the end of the session, Senna stole some more of the psychological advantage with a new record qualifying lap, easily beating the previous record by almost 2 seconds.
I'm much more confident in this weekend about our possibilities than I have been now for a long time. That doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to be an easy race. I think tomorrow is going to be a close fight with the Williams and the Ferraris. And all I can do is to try to make the best choices on the fine-tuning for the car for tomorrow's race and have a good start, because here is important to be ahead on the first corner. I am in the best place on the grid. Hopefully I can make enough good start to maintain that position on the first corner.
Well, a good start was exactly what Senna made, and although Patrese was there with him, some really late braking in that first corner kept Senna's lead, with Mansell slotting into third from Prost, Berger and Alesi. Through the fast downhill corners, the whole field got through without incident, and in third place, Nigel Mansell was already hungry to pass his teammate. Alain Prost was an early retirement from fourth place with engine trouble. Another unhappy day for him. And while Ayrton Senna kept his lead, Mansell was now pushing Riccardo Patrese hard. And on the start-finish straight, Riccardo waved his teammate through to second place. So Mansell was where he wanted to be to attack Ayrton Senna. Most went without tyre stops on this smooth surface, but Ivan Capelli needed fresh rubber on his way to sixth place. As for Senna, he'd used a mix of soft and very soft tyre compounds, and he made them last to break Mansell's run of wins and score his first victory since Monaco. He'd revived his championship lead, and he'd put in a perfectly judged day's work. As he'd said, winning the race to the first corner had been all important.
So it was Senna first, Mansell second. Capelli and Alesi taking the minor placings, McLaren and Williams splitting the rest between them. Senna claimed 10 points for the first time in 6 races.
It's satisfying to win this weekend, to be on pole and lead the race and to win, of course. But I think for the championship is a totally open situation. We have a very tough championship between now and the end. I think it's going to be really difficult for us to maintain the leadership in the championship. I think Nigel and Riccardo are driving hard, driving well. They are also having a good package available to them. And they are tough to compete. We have to improve if we want really to compete with them in all kinds of circuits. But we'll try our best and see. But it's going to be an exciting championship.
Prophetic words by the champion. But further down, Ivan Capelli and Leighton House picked up a much-needed point for the first time in over a year.
Yes, after 1 year not finishing a race, and the first that is finished is scoring also 1 point. I think that is, and also in probably the hardest race of the year, because today was very, very hot and very, very tough, the race between all the drivers. I think this is a very good move.
Ron Dennis in the wrong place at the wrong time became a target on the podium. On the track, McLaren was still the team to beat.
Swinging things round, you know, from uncompetitive to competitive is a real challenge. I mean, it's hard enough to stay there when you get there, but it's very difficult when you fall behind, especially mid-season, to sort of pull your socks up and get with the program. But as I said, I hope that our plan, our strategy is going to work. I hope that we're going to be strong in the last 4 races, and of course I know there's a lot of people are rooting for Nigel to become world champion, and I understand that. But of course, our job is to win all the races and win the world championship. We're a British team, and as much as it may disappoint Mansell, it will most definitely please my mum.
It was Belgium for round 11 in the Ardennes Forest, the famous circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. Adored by most drivers for its variety, 4.3 miles in all, Senna had won 4 of the last 7 Grand Prix here. McLaren and Honda had developed the variable air inlet trumpet on the V12. Depending on the engine revs, the trumpets went up or down to order. The idea was to give the engine more power at lower revs, better efficiency all round. It wasn't a novel idea. Ferrari had tried it before, and Williams were keeping an eye on developments.
Now, we have obviously got fixed trumpets. We don't know whether it's the right or wrong way to go, but what I'm saying is that they have moved the stakes a lot higher, and it's going to be tough for us this weekend too.
One man absent from his home Grand Prix at Spa, Bertrand Gachot, jailed for assault using CS gas in an incident with a London cab driver. A movement appealed for his release from the 6-month sentence being served in Britain. The jail term gave Michael Schumacher the opportunity to join Jordan, the 22-year-old German making his debut in Formula One, having learned his trade at the top level with the Mercedes sports car team. The Jordan drive was a great opportunity for him, and he proved his ability with 8th place in the first session of qualifying. A great boost for the team and himself.
Yeah, sure, I'm really happy. But anyway, I have to say, with this car, you can do this qualifying time. You know, the car feels really good, and it makes a lot of fun to drive. And also for the time, I'm really happy, yeah.
Senna claimed provisional pole position, timed at under 1 minute 50. But on the Saturday, Prost went quicker. The Ferrari 643 hurtling round at an average speed of over 140 miles an hour. But just as Alain Prost's lap ended, Senna found a gap in the traffic to go faster still, and he beat Prost's time by a whole second. Mansell then took his chance to steal second place on the grid, temporarily at least. The Ferrari of Jean Alesi was quicker than anyone else up to half distance round the track. Then he was delayed by traffic heading towards the line and could manage no better than 6th. Gerhard Berger played little part in the proceedings with a blown engine, no time set at all in Saturday qualifying. He remained 5th overall. Riccardo Patrese again bumped his teammate Mansell off the front row, a time second only to Senna's. Patrese frequently set better qualifying times than Mansell throughout the season. It left his teammate down on his knees, not praying for divine assistance, just a routine inspection it seemed, but he was concerned at his car's performance.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, we've won from 4th on the grid before. This circuit's a little bit easier for overtaking, but I'd have liked to have stayed in 2nd if I could, and I think I paid the penalty of going out too early in the session, but there's possibly a threat of a little bit of rain, and I think the track probably got a little bit grippier at the end.
At Spa, it rapidly became apparent that once again Senna would be the man to beat.
For sure, we try to beat him. I think here there is more chance than the last Grand Prix in Hungary, for sure, but we have to see our potential against their potential. That is something that we have to check only in the race. We will see.
Problems lay ahead for Patrese. In a routine check, the car's reverse gear couldn't be found. As a result, his brilliant Saturday time was disallowed, and he was dropped from 2nd to 17th on the grid.
Spa starts are always fraught, with the hairpin immediately after the grid. Senna and Prost got away wheel to wheel, but somehow they all got round. And down the hill it was Senna, Prost, Mansell, Berger and Piquet as they rushed down to Eau Rouge, and Alesi was behind Schumacher. But the Jordan faltered going up the hill. Up to the complex at the top of the hill, Senna and Prost were still at the head of the queue. And watch Nelson Piquet make up a place on Berger. But Schumacher's first Grand Prix was over. Disappointment for Eddie Jordan.
He just radioed in. I think we have a problem with something to do with the engine, and I think it's in the clutch department. We're not exactly sure. It's too early to say until he comes back.
And Alain Prost's race was over on lap 3. The Ferrari was on fire. So Prost's sickening record with Maranello continued. But Mansell wanted revenge for Hungary. At the bus stop, he was on Senna's tail. And as he lined up to pass, Senna was coming in for tyres. For a change, this was a slow McLaren stop. It dropped Senna to 5th, while Mansell's a lap later went well. He rejoined 3rd. And he lost no time passing Berger for 2nd. Nelson Piquet, briefly the leader, came in for his stop. So did Berger. But Mansell's comfortable lead lasted only 4 more laps before the Williams-Renault spluttered to a halt, its race run.
Hello. I hate to say something similar to Canada, but it's obviously an electrical problem. I can't say any more. As to the championship, guys, I can't say anything. Got to see who wins the race. If Ayrton wins the race here, you know the answer. Thank you, everybody. Yes, I am disappointed.
So Jean Alesi's Ferrari had the lead, with Senna a close 2nd. Patrese was carving through from his 9th row start, taking Piquet for 3rd and closing on Senna. But then sliding off. But Alesi's run ended in a smoky engine failure, another bitter Ferrari disappointment. So Senna was in front, with De Cesaris forcing the Jordan past Piquet for 2nd place. Piquet's tyres were fading. Berger's McLaren would soon be approaching. Patrese too. Here's Berger's McLaren coming past to take 4th place behind Patrese. Then De Cesaris' magnificent charge ended in engine failure. The Jordan team couldn't believe it. This had nearly been the podium finish that Eddie had longed for in his first Formula One season. Then Patrese, briefly 2nd, was also in trouble, smoking. So Berger came through to 2nd. Piquet's Benetton got up to 3rd, and this is Moreno's Benetton, passing Patrese for 4th. So it was another McLaren 1-2, but a very lucky one for Ayrton Senna. Just as in Brazil, his gearbox was almost completely finished.
Senna's 4th consecutive victory at Spa. The first points for Brabham via Mark Blundell. 3 Brazilians in the top 4, but no doubt about the star of the show after that McLaren 1-2.
10 points, very important today, particularly with Mansell and Patrese almost not scoring. So this is a major step forward in the championship, but still the Williams is a faster car, and under normal circumstances they are ahead of us. So we went through one more race, we got a fantastic result, and we have a little more time until the next one to go forward again in our car combination. We need further improvements in the aerodynamics. We have some things coming up for Monza, and we need a more stable engine. Our engine goes up and down, lose power, comes back, and we need to improve the whole package to compete in equal terms with Williams. But in the meantime, I have 22 points lead with 5 races remaining. Who knows? We will keep trying and we wait and see.
Italy in September and Monza, steeped in motor racing history, the name redolent of Grand Prix. The Tifosi out in force, Ferrari fanatics, every one of them. Their season had been disappointing so far, but they retained their enthusiasm and their high regard for the English lion, Nigel Mansell. On the social scene, a party to celebrate Nelson Piquet's 200th Grand Prix. Gathered at the Benetton motorhome, the press and media, of course, plus colleagues and teammates. Former team manager Frank Williams, Riccardo Patrese, Nigel Mansell, Jean Alesi, and even Alain Prost.
I'm still impressed by somebody having 200 Grand Prix, especially him. He's so relaxed. But I'm sure he can go to 300 anyway. I don't know if I can reach myself 200, but the way he's enjoying life and racing, that's why he can reach even, let's say, 250 for sure without any problem. Still very competitive, and I think that is his advantage, you know, to be relaxed and to enjoy life. It's not like me.
And a new teammate for Nelson. Michael Schumacher left Jordan after only one race and replaced Moreno at Benetton. Moreno eventually securing the spare Jordan drive after much behind-the-scenes manoeuvring.
We have Schumacher on a contract until the end of 1995 to our team. With the sole exception of Mercedes-Benz factory ever did come from Grand Prix racing, then they have the right to reacquire his contract.
I'm convinced, and my lawyers have advised me, that we have 2 signed legal agreements with Michael Schumacher. That has yet to be gone through in the courts, of course. Of course, Schumacher and his advisors will have the same opportunity, to prove that they have a valid contract.
There were some points where Eddie and me can't agree, or I can't agree with Eddie, let me say like this, and I can't accept this. You know, I wouldn't sign a contract which is not good for me, and I got a contract from Benetton which was good for me, and then I did this.
The ethics and how we go about honouring people's contracts. I mean, we either have to get drivers to sign contracts or we just leave it free for all. I'm easy either way, but I think we do have to have some very firm situations.
Initially, Roberto Moreno seemed as stunned as anyone at the dramatic speed of events. He'd been up most of the night trying to find a drive somewhere in Formula One and eventually settled in the Jordan seat on a race-by-race basis. Piquet, ready to celebrate his 200 in style, was initially the quickest in qualifying. But then Michael Schumacher stole the show from his illustrious teammate. Piquet, perturbed by that, hit trouble. And after his slide off the track, the car needed serious attention. Roberto Moreno in the Jordan, determined to prove a point. He managed to go quicker than Nelson Piquet, but still couldn't beat Michael Schumacher, no matter how hard he tried. Mansell out trying for a quick lap, but balked first by the Modena of Eric van der Poel, and then later by the number 2 McLaren of Gerhard Berger. Even so, Mansell ended up second on the grid. The only problem, it was Senna ahead of him. The champion claiming pole position with his time set in the very first session. It left Mansell only a 1/10 of a second adrift, but once again he was left to muse over events.
I mean, I had just 2 horrible laps from the point of view of traffic. I think I passed 6 cars on my qualifying lap then and still did a 21, 1 or 2, I don't know what it was, a 1/10 off. I felt sure it would have been quicker than that if we had a clear lap.
Meanwhile, down the pit lane at McLaren-Honda, a rare chance to savour the moment.
But no chance to savour anything now. It's an important race for Senna, an important race for Mansell. And once again, Senna's start was superb, with Mansell, Berger and Patrese leading the 2 Ferraris to the first chicane. And this is Schumacher's view in 7th place. And already this race is the longest in his brief Formula One career. Already Jean Alesi was going for Patrese's 4th place. At the chicane he got it, but he was braking too late. And he rejoined just in front of teammate Prost. But the car was damaged on the curbs and he was in the pits at the end of the lap. Meanwhile, Piquet was leading the second group and Roberto Moreno departed from his first Jordan race and into the barriers. The culprit was a brake balance problem. He was out. At the front, a quartet had broken away, with Patrese attacking Berger for 3rd place, watched from behind by Prost. And now Patrese set about his teammate Mansell. Mansell let him go. It was all part of their team tactics to wear down Senna. A few laps later, Patrese had the pressure hard on Senna, and in a perfect outbraking manoeuvre at Ascari, he went ahead. But his moment of glory was destined to be a short one. A lap later, on the same corner, a gearbox problem did this to him. He restarted third. But, as the replay shows, he got neutral instead of third gear as he braked for the chicane. Moments later, he'd stopped for good.
Gearbox trouble, I had an hesitation changing down while I was going to the Ascari chicane. And because of that I spun, because the gearbox was not quick enough to change down gears. I spun, I went away from that moment, did half a lap, and the gearbox exploded, so no more gears.
But Senna was still being pushed hard by Mansell, who was just waiting for his moment. And he did it at Ascari on lap 34. Just like Patrese, but no spin this time. Senna decided that now it was time for a tyre stop. It was a good one, less than 6 seconds. And though it dropped him to 5th place, his fresh rubber helped him past Schumacher for 4th. Then past his teammate Berger for 3rd. And finally Alain Prost for 2nd. But for Nigel Mansell, this was perhaps the sweetest victory of the year. Ayrton Senna and McLaren-Honda beaten fair and square in a straight fight. And that championship was still just alive, with 4 races to go.
A great boost for Mansell as he entered the last quarter of the season. Piquet finishing behind his new Benetton teammate, points for Prost and Berger. But a vital win for Mansell. Afterwards, he knew he'd been in a race.
I think it was a fabulous race to watch. It was a fabulous race to be in. It was a great fight at the beginning between Ayrton, myself and Ricciardo. I wasn't sure whether Ricciardo was my teammate at one time or not, because he was pushing me very hard when I was right behind Ayrton. Then I decided to let Ricciardo go, because I wanted him to duck and dive with Ayrton to use his tyres up. So I dropped back then just to conserve my tyres in my own airflow, which worked real good. And then I woke up a little bit when Ricciardo got past. I thought, okay, fine, I better go for it now. And then Ricciardo immediately obviously had a gearbox problem, which made him spin. And then it was between Ayrton and myself again. And then I think Ayrton ran into a little bit of a tyre problem, and I managed to squeeze by just before he went into the pits. And then it was a very hard race at the end, because I'd blistered, I think, all my tyres by this time.
A win and 10 points for Nigel Mansell. 18 points now the difference between him and Senna at the top of the championship. Senna picking up those important 6 points for 2nd place.
Sure, better second than nothing. I think it was a tough race, and I was not as quick as the 2 Williams, and I was struggling. I was struggling with them. They were pushing me. They were pushing me at the beginning, and it was difficult. But then Ricciardo got by, managed to get by. Then he had a problem. Then Nigel was right there, and he managed to get by the same place again. And from there on, I couldn't follow Nigel. I knew I had some tyre problem anyway, so I decided to stop. And it paid off, because otherwise I would have fall back a lot, and I wouldn't even have finished second. So it was a second place, very good.
In the Constructors Championship, it seemed that McLaren and Williams were destined to dispute the title right to the bitter end. No chance of intervention from the rest, with Ferrari in particular smarting about that. Round 12, Portugal, a fairly recent but very popular addition to the Grand Prix calendar. The initial Formula One race at Estoril in 1983 decided the championship then, and it would surely play an important role 8 years later. Nigel Mansell in relaxed mood with his wife Roseanne. In Friday qualifying, it was Gerhard Berger in prime form, a stunningly quick time that only Ayrton Senna could approach. On the Saturday, Riccardo Patrese, having claimed third position on the grid from Nigel Mansell, found no response from his car soon after finishing his flying lap. Lip readers might like to report the comments to Mr. F. Williams of Didcot. Nigel Mansell stole second behind Gerhard Berger with an expert display on a track he enjoys. But Ayrton Senna goes well here too, and he made it an all-McLaren front row. With McLaren 1 and 2, Riccardo Patrese had different ideas. In the closing moments, in a car set up for Nigel Mansell, he rocketed round a smidgen over 1 minute 13 seconds, and that was good enough to claim pole position. So Patrese and Berger on the front row, with the championship contenders immediately behind.
But I mean, for you guys, it couldn't have worked out better. I mean, shit. I mean, geez, for you guys, you got the best grid possible, you know? I mean, for me, it's the worst grid possible.
Sunday morning at Estoril, and Ferrari in trouble again. An oversight by their mechanics resulted in Prost beating a hasty exit from a car that took warm-up too literally, and so forcing him to use the spare car in the race.
There he is in the spare Ferrari, waiting for the green light, and this time Patrese's start was perfect. Nigel Mansell chopped in front of Senna. Senna went right, but Mansell went round him at the first corner, and then he went inside Berger to be second. Alesi tried to do the same to Senna, but it didn't work. Prost was once more content to follow the excitement at this stage. Mansell followed Patrese until lap 18, and then went smoothly ahead. Senna at this stage was down in 4th place. It all looked to be in the bag. Here's Ayrton Senna's tyre stop, a record 5 seconds stationary. Off he goes, a perfect stop. But here comes Nigel Mansell, and this was the stop that virtually spelt the end of his championship hopes. Watch the right rear wheel. He stops at the spot. All 4 wheels are off. The new ones are on. And in less than 8 seconds he's away, but the right rear flies off, scattering other mechanics. And the 3-wheeled Williams stops in the pit lane. Mansell is stranded. He can do absolutely nothing. In slow motion, one of the mechanics on the right rear raises his arm, but his fellow hasn't tightened the nut, and the car starts to leave. Now in the pit lane, another wheel is manhandled on. All sorts of regulations are being broken. The car is lifted bodily. They manage to get the wheel on, but the seconds are ticking away, and Mansell is almost weeping with frustration. Still, it's not finished. Other cars go by, and finally the job is done. Mansell storms away, leaving 2 black rubber lines down the pit lane. He's now in 17th place. Berger, second, retires in the pits. Alain Prost, third, has another engine failure. And Jean Alesi, now third, is under pressure from Martini and Capelli. This was when they came up to lap Martin Brundle. Watch for Alesi's hand signals before he goes by. And he was able to take Martini with him. Then, inevitably, the black flag for Mansell. In 16 laps, he'd gone from 17th to 6th. An incredible drive. But that pit stop had broken all the rules, and an inconsolable Mansell had nothing to say. In the closing stages, Piquet, a lap down in the Benetton, followed the cruising Patrese home. But poor Capelli lost 5th place when he clouted the barrier in the Leighton House. So Piquet and Schumacher in the Benettons moved up to 5th and 6th places. So a Williams win, richly deserved by Patrese, but for all Nigel Mansell's fans, it was the wrong Williams after yet another cruel wrench of fate for the Englishman.
Williams managing to salvage something from the race and so keeping their constructors' title hopes alive. Patrese, though, was certainly conscious that attention would be centred on Mansell's misfortune rather than his win.
But I have to say that I deserve this race because it's all year that I'm trying very hard, and probably I could still on the championship fight if I didn't have some bad luck. So at least before the end of the season, I think that I really wanted a victory. I tried all my best since yesterday when I got the pole. So I think that, okay, a bit disappointing for Nigel, but very happy for me.
Senna celebrated with an element of relief, while Mansell was down but not out yet. 24 points the difference, 3 races left. The first at the brand new circuit Catalunya near Barcelona, one of the sporting capitals of the world, the Olympic host in 1992. Almost 3 miles round, the new venue for the Spanish Grand Prix. Gabriele Tarquini decided to move camp from AGS to Fondmetal.
But I changed the team because AGS have the problem to finish the season, and I take the decision to change the team because the Fondmetal was happy to take me, and I finished the season now.
And Olivier Gruillard replaced Tarquini at AGS. Alessandro Zanardi, another Formula 3000 find, stepped into Jordan's number 32 at the expense of Roberto Moreno. The 4th driver of the car this year, a great chance for the 24-year-old Italian.
It's very difficult because everything is new for me here at Barcelona, the track, the car. I never tested the Jordan car before, but you know, it's very difficult, but I think I have more chance in my Formula 3000 championship on the last race.
Any football manager looking for strikers for the next World Cup might take a look at Nigel Mansell. Well, he should be living in the States by then. 2 goals in this friendly involving drivers and media raised an eyebrow or two. But whether he will play football again is another matter. An ankle injury actually cast doubt on his participation in the forthcoming Grand Prix. Luckily, it was his left ankle, and there's no clutch pedal on the Williams.
No, I'm not a good footballer. I just like running around. If you run quick enough, it looks like you're working, but I'm not really.
But there was no doubt at all about the pain he was in from the injured ankle. Quite what his team manager, Frank Williams, had to say about his escapade has gone unrecorded. And so on to qualifying. Ayrton Senna, knowing that he only had to finish ahead of Nigel Mansell in the race to claim his 3rd world title, set a time that was good enough for 3rd place on the grid. Nigel Mansell, still resting that injured left leg, took 2nd on the grid for a race that he had to win to preserve his title chances. And it was Gerhard Berger, rediscovering some excellent qualifying form towards the end of the season, who scurried through the heat haze on the start and finish line to claim the pole. On Sunday morning, rain produced a damp circuit, the extra joker in the pack for a crucial race.
At the start, the rain had stopped, but it was still wet. And the two McLarens moved smoothly ahead at the green light, with Mansell and Schumacher next. Into the first corner, Senna tried to pass his teammate and then thought better of it. Mansell, meanwhile, was all over Senna. It was tremendously slippery, and it was quite a miracle that all the field got through the first corners intact. Schumacher was watching all this from fourth place, and then he decided to dive inside Nigel Mansell for third. While there was excitement at the front, Thierry Boutsen was already off further down on the greasy surface after a tangle with Eric Bernard, and Jean Alesi was attacking Mansell. Schumacher went for Senna. You can see how slippery it is. And then he was himself threatened by Mansell. Berger was getting away at this point, as Mansell disposed of Schumacher again, round the outside, and went after Senna. It was great motor racing on the slippery surface. Meanwhile, Alain Prost, who'd wanted to start on slicks but had been prevented by his team, came in early as a gamble that the track would dry out, and he stormed back into the race, now down in 19th place. Mansell wound in Senna and got alongside for second place. Two determined men with the championship uppermost in their minds. Watch how close they get. A real battle of nerves. Mansell has won the corner, but Senna fights back. Leader Berger came in for slicks, for the track was now almost dry, but removing tape from his brake ducts lost more time before he rejoined in 5th place. And then Mansell and Senna, first and second, came in on the same lap. The Williams team, with the memory of Portugal uppermost in their minds, was slower than the McLaren boys. Senna was out first, and he'd regained the lead in the pit lane. Out went Mansell. The McLaren strategy was to use Berger as the hare. Watch Senna wave him by. Come on, Gerhard. And so Berger, perhaps a little unwillingly, goes into the lead. Schumacher, who'd stopped early, was 4th behind Mansell. And as Nigel closed on Senna on the still damp track, there was a brief further shower of rain. And now we saw something unusual. Ayrton Senna, out of control, backwards off the circuit. Mansell has squeezed through, Schumacher too. Senna rejoins in 7th place. Mansell was on superb form again. Berger was still leading, but watch how Mansell just asserts himself up the inside of a right-hander. And Berger only just stays in control. Now Schumacher was after Berger, but this squirt up alongside the McLaren ends in a spin. Nothing daunted, the German rejoined in 6th place after a bit of autocrossing. Next, Alesi was brought in by the organisers and held at the top of the pit lane for 10 seconds, a punishment for weaving at the start. It dropped him from 5th place to 9th, and it put real fire back into his driving for the rest of the race. Just look at the speed he went down the pit lane. And then Berger was in to post his 7th retirement of the season with engine trouble. And Alesi, still fuming from his penalty, was catching Senna for 4th place, slicing by decisively. Martini did the last lap on 3 wheels. Morbidelli and Zanardi had gone off together, just as Morbidelli's teammate Martini came innocently along. And look what happened next. Not quite what you normally mean by team tactics. So a fine win for Mansell, A poor fifth for Senna. And mathematically at least, the championship wasn't quite over yet.
The result for Mansell. Schumacher scored another point. The Ferraris were happier at Barcelona than usual. But the talking points, the brilliant Williams recovery after Estoril, and Mansell's superb drive.
It wasn't so nice from where I was. No, it was reasonably clean, and but I think everybody saw that it was a very, very big fight, and Ayrton was giving no quarter, and Gerhard was giving no quarter, and there wasn't much room on a number of occasions, but a great race for everybody, and a good race for me. I'm very happy.
There was much to risk impose on those two overtake maneuvers, and I don't really understand why Mansell is doing what he's doing. But I was able to avoid any contact when he was trying to overtake me, and just as I did in Portugal. And I will do my best in the last two races as long as I can to avoid that. But of course I am also fighting for the championship, and I have to get a little bit tougher instead of opening the road every time that somebody comes playing everything over me. So we wait and see.
Heading for Japan, Mansell knew he had to win the last two races to keep his title hopes alive. Suzuka in the rain, and a welcome return to the Grand Prix scene for Bertrand Gachot. Out of jail, but not as yet into a car.
Well, my job is to drive Formula Ones. I think before what happened, we were driving good. I just had done the lap record in Hungary, and everything was going well. I was 11th in the World Championship. So I believe it was very unfair to put me in jail, and certainly it was unjustified. So I hope that I can get to my place and better it.
Despite the rain before the first day of qualifying, Nigel Mansell remained in good humour.
And then, I mean, welcome to sunny Japan. I mean, it's great, isn't it? Come here for your suntan. Gee, it was a nice, easy weekend. Plenty of relaxation, no football, no boxing. I'm not going to be a triathlon this weekend. I'm just going to drive cars nice and quiet.
In at Leighton House, another recruit from the World Sports Car Championship, the Mercedes driver Karl Wendlinger from Austria. He replaced Ivan Capelli, who played team manager for the weekend. The new president of the sports governing body, FISA, arrived at Suzuka. Max Mosley, who'd been voted in instead of Jean-Marie Balestre, here chatting with Ayrton Senna and Ron Dennis. Afterwards, he outlined FISA's aims.
Well, I think the main thing is to make sure this is a top-level professional sport. We're talking about Formula One. And really the main function of FISA is to do everything from its side to match that level of professionalism. I think we've got to make sure that the entire FISA operation, which is really a refereeing operation, is at the same high professional standard that the teams operate to. Having said that, that's Formula One. The main work, for me at least, and the FISA generally, is outside Formula One and in the lesser formulae and with the countries where there is relatively little motorsport. Our job is to try and build motorsport up in those countries all over the world.
Upsets in practice at Suzuka. Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi Ferrari. His accident delayed the session. No sooner was it underway again than Gabriele Tarquini made a mess of his new Fond Metal. More seriously, Eric Bernard in the Larousse, still in the cockpit of his crashed car. There's some indication of the impact from the replay here. Amazing that the driver didn't suffer major injuries. Bernard with a broken leg that will keep him out of Formula One until next year. Helicoptered to hospital, Larousse ran just one car at Suzuka. Jean Alesi out in the Ferrari, finding Suzuka troublesome, the car out of shape in more ways than one. 1991 just wasn't Alesi's or Ferrari's year. Michael Schumacher, another young charger, walking back after his skirmish in the Benetton. Made a great impression in the first few races, Schumacher, but he demonstrated that nobody's infallible in this game. Nigel Mansell, all he had to do was win. Ayrton Senna, All he had to do was finish ahead of Mansell. It was Mansell, third on the grid eventually, 0.03 of a second slower than Ayrton Senna. Senna content with a front row position, especially as Mansell was behind him. He had a chance to control the race. He could send the pole position man Gerhard Berger away as the hare at the start. Mansell was determined. After last year, no quarter to be given at the first corner.
I mean, I had the perfect line of sight of what happened last year between Ayrton and Alain at the first corner, and as you know, I drove for Ferrari then, and I'm not going to certainly give him the opportunity to do the same sort of thing for me.
If I finish second place tomorrow, the championship will be over. If Mansell does not win, then it's almost certain that the championship will be over as well. So it's an open situation, but it's being slowly coming to our way, the championship, particularly the second half of the season, bit by bit, step by step, and let's hope that tomorrow is the last bit that we are missing for it.
Race day fortunately dawned fine. All around Suzuka, the race fans displayed their respective loyalties. Many of them backed Nigel Mansell. But Ayrton Senna was not without his supporters.
With two McLarens on the front row, Mansell was down in third spot on the grid. And at the start, the team tactics between Senna and Berger became clear. Berger led down to the first corner. Two McLarens, two Williamses, two Ferraris. And no repeat of last year's collision. But poor Jean Alesi's race didn't last the first lap. Another blown Ferrari engine. More disappointment for Maranello. So while Berger led, Senna concentrated on keeping Mansell down in third place. This four-car shunt started with a spin by De Cesaris, and it also took out Leto, Pirot and Wendlinger. And now Mansell was going for it, getting very close to Senna. He was doing all he could to keep the pressure off. Down the start-finish straight they came, and leaving his braking very late for turn 1 on lap 10, Mansell ran wide. It was all over. He kept his engine running, but the car was bogged down, and you could read the resignation in his shoulders as he climbed out. His championship battle was finished, and in the Williams pit, Patrick Head gave Frank the news. And here in slow motion is how it looked from Nigel's cockpit. It was another bumpy ride into oblivion, but Nigel was magnanimous in defeat.
Basically, I went in deep. I was starting to feel my way with Ayrton. I wasn't in real hurry. But in the warm-up this morning, I had a slight problem with the brake pedal. And I think it was a combination of just going into my deep braking point. And when I hit the pedal, I'm afraid the pedal was a little soft. And I didn't retard, I didn't slow down, which you could probably see on television. The car didn't slow down. And then I ran out of road then, it's as simple as that. I mean, we've given it a great go. The team's done a fabulous job. I'd like to congratulate Ayrton now on his third World Championship. Yeah, there's always next year, and we'll go to Australia and enjoy Australia.
All that was left now was for McLaren on Honda's home soil to stage a crushing 1-2. Berger waved the re-crowned champion into the lead. But behind this demonstration, there was still some motor racing going on. There was a good battle for fifth between Martini, Schumacher and Brundle. But that three-car battle became a two-car fight promoting Brundle to 6th place when the Benetton slowed to a halt. It had a blown engine. Then Martini stopped with electrical trouble. So, to the delight of Yamaha, Martin Brundle was up to 5th place. It was a reminder that Honda aren't the only Japanese Grand Prix engine manufacturer. The final lap, and after a word from McLaren boss Ron Dennis over the radio, Senna pulled aside to let teammate Gerhard Berger take the race. Senna, of course, knowing that the championship title was already his since Mansell's retirement. So joy for Berger, not his first Japanese Grand Prix victory, but his first ever win for McLaren. And he says thank you to Senna. And from Ron Dennis come congratulations by radio to Ayrton Senna on his 3rd World Championship title.
The McLaren 1-2 sealed the driver's title for Ayrton Senna. Patrese, with 3rd, ensured that the Constructors Championship lived on until Adelaide. Brundle earned points, so ensuring that Brabham wouldn't have to pre-qualify next year. In Parc Fermé, Mansell sportingly congratulated the new champion. Once again, the title had been decided in Japan. But in contrast to the 2 previous years, it seemed that motor racing had been the overall winner.
It's been exciting one for me. I won here in '88, was memorable too. '89 I was robbed badly by the system, and that I will never forget. But 1990 it went the other way. It was a sad championship in 1990, but it was a result of the '89 championship and a result of the politics that we had in 1990 and '89. Then '91, fortunately, we were able to have a clean championship without politicians, without people playing any game. It was a technical and a sportive championship that we had this year. And I hope it will be an example, not only for myself, but for everyone that's competing in Formula One now and in the coming future.
So it's Ayrton Senna, the world champion, his teammate Gerhard Berger, the race winner.
I have to say thank you to Ayrton. We switched over place. And I think it's very nice to know, because a lot of times I was in a situation where I had to take care, or where I was in the difficult part of the game. And it's very nice to know that if it's the other way around, it comes also from the teammate. So it will be no problem at all for the future. If you know both sides are working the same, then I think it will be good for the next year too.
Coming off the podium, surprise, surprise, Ron Dennis getting his own back for a season of soakings. Good to see a title battle that ended with smiles. The last race of the season in Adelaide, South Australia, home of the Australian Grand Prix since 1985. A street circuit with incredibly fast sections that give it the character of a purpose-built track. Ferrari had decided to terminate Alain Prost's contract because of his repeated open criticism of the team's performance. A sad way to finish a relationship between 2 of the sport's big names, though it had never been comfortable.
We are upset because we've lost as Ferrari one of the best driver and the best test driver of the Formula One. The reason was the behavior of Alain Prost was not at the level that Ferrari would like for his top driver.
It was a move that shocked the Adelaide public. They'd been looking forward to welcoming back the twice winner of their Grand Prix. Ferrari called in their test driver Gianni Morbidelli to take Prost's place. Morbidelli had spent the season driving for the Minardi team. The gap left there was filled by the Brazilian Roberto Moreno. Minardi, his 3rd different team of the season after Benetton and Jordan. Another popular driver made a return. Bertrand Gachot took over from the injured Eric Bernard at Larousse. Bernard, fully recovered, should be back next season. The pressure was supposed to be off. It was the last race of the season, but it was an incident-filled practice. Tarquini crashed the Fonmetal just as he did in Japan. Alessandro Zanardi, over exuberance in the Jordan. Explain that to your team manager. Carl Wendlinger in the Leighton House, the young Austrian, finding the Adelaide circuit quite demanding. Nigel Mansell enjoys the Adelaide circuit, but he didn't like this much. And Gianni Morbidelli tested the Ferrari's resilience. A nasty accident for Aguri Suzuki in the LaRousse. The end of a long, hard season where he hasn't finished a race in the last 14. Out of the cockpit and okay to resume. The Dallara of JJ Leto in trouble. Michael Schumacher in the Benetton attempting to go over the top of Mark Blundell's Brabham. By contrast, a graceful spin from Riccardo Patrese in the Williams. Stefano Modena in the Tyrrell. The car a mess, the driver fortunately okay. Seemingly untroubled, the new world champion came through to claim his 60th pole position. The record goes higher.
It's very tough, you know, because Gerhard is driving very well. The cars are similar. Williams is also in a similar level, so it's very difficult to maintain the level required to beat everybody else.
Every November, Adelaide comes alive for the Grand Prix. The normally sleepy city turns itself into one huge party, everyone with a part to play. Half an hour before the race, a rainstorm blew in, triggering memories of the controversial Grand Prix of '89.
By the time the grid formed up, the rain was torrential. There'd been a lot of talk about whether the race should run. But the crowd were waiting, the TV stations were waiting. So with the Constructors Championship still open, the race got underway. 15,000 horsepower scrabbling for grip, and they were off, with Senna and Berger leading the field as expected. But Mansell and the Benettons were up there too, with Alesi, Patrese and Morbidelli following. Quite a Ferrari baptism for Gianni Morbidelli. Conditions were impossible, visibility non-existent, but somehow Mansell got past Berger into second place and started to catch Senna. Piquet showed there was no grip at all, but this little pirouette didn't even lose him fourth place. The ever-determined Mansell was soon on Senna's tail, but as he dived out of the spray to go alongside, a marshal's warning wave told of wreckage ahead. Larini and Alesi had crashed on the straight, and Mansell only just saw the wreckage of the Lamborghini in time and pulled in behind Senna again. Still, in these impossible conditions, Mansell kept the pressure up. No grip on the straight sent Martinez Minardi straight into the wall. And now the rain was coming down harder than ever, and everyone was wondering why the race hadn't been stopped. There's Mansell out of control in the spray behind Senna and backwards into the barriers. As Senna went on alone, Mansell's car was in the wall, with Nigel still in the cockpit. Berger, now second, had a major spin, but rejoined. But now Senna had had enough. He was waving frantically for the race to be stopped. And at last, out came the red flag. But Berger, walking home, had had another huge spin, and how he didn't hit anyone this time is a mystery. Mansell was being helped into a medical van in pain from an injured foot. Afterwards, he was very angry that the race hadn't been stopped earlier.
Everything was okay other than it was a complete joke. I mean, there was debris all over the place, and I don't know whether I got a puncture or whether I ran over something, but the car just instantly went out of control. It might aquaplane, but you know, I've been through the corner in Senna's tracks time and time again. Television will show, and he just threw me straight into the wall, left hand, and he was a big hit. Well, I'm speechless because, you know, there's a truck down the straight, there's 4 cars down the straight. The race they had 10 laps to stop the race when the accident happened. There's debris all over the place. I mean, people getting punctures. I mean, I just don't know, and I mean, I've hurt myself. I mean, my foot is really bad now, and I've got a headache like there's no tomorrow, so I probably had a little bit of concussion. But, I mean, I can't say anymore. I just don't understand.
I think it doesn't really matter whether they start or don't start the race. We've won the Constructors Championship because Williams needed to win. But I think we did a reasonable job this year. We were leading this race as well. And you win and lose World Championships in 16 races, not 1. It would have just been nice to have a better show at the end.
And after a pause to see if the weather would relent, the race was finally abandoned for good.
Half points for the curtailed Grand Prix, but another win for Ayrton Senna. Nigel Mansell appropriately second, Nelson Piquet in his last Benetton race in the points. And a good start for Morbidelli at Ferrari. The absentee on the podium, Nigel Mansell. After a medical check, he went straight to the airport. Adelaide, an anticlimax for everyone, including Senna.
Well, I don't think that was a race, first of all, because it was just a matter of staying on the circuit, and was not a point to try to go quick at all, and it was impossible. We had a race, very bad one here a couple of years ago, and then was impossible, and today was even worse. There was even more water on the back straight, and you could see that all cars were flying away, flying off, hitting the wall, and surely if I was in the lead I had a little more visibility and I could take my time to make sure I would stay on the circuit, but it was just one of those things. I managed to stay on the circuit, but it wasn't a race at all.
Despite the damp ending in Adelaide, it was a season that portrayed so much of the very best of the sport. Ayrton Senna's 3rd world title ensures that he'll be ranked among the all-time greats. Nigel Mansell's latest disappointment in his quest for the championship cannot disguise the fact that he's a genuine racing driver, a supreme entertainer for Formula One's millions of fans.
And no sooner had the teams returned from Adelaide than they began testing and developing, looking ahead to the 1992 season. Formula One never rests.